What's up everyone, welcome to the video. We are here breaking down the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard, the Indy road course for our fourth road course race of the season. And look, they're not my favorite track types. They tend to be a bit boring, but for DFS purposes, they're really not too bad. And this race will take place on Sunday, July 31st at around 3 p.m. Eastern. I do apologize if I sound different this week, but I've been pretty sick. I guess I have COVID, just tested yesterday, so hopefully we should be good to go for the weekend and all the live streams that I have planned for tomorrow. But as of right now, we're kicking still, so should be good to go. But anyway, if you are brand new here, my name is Chris Pennell. I break down the NASCAR DFS slate each and every single weekend on this channel. You can also find me live on Sunday mornings around 11 a.m. Eastern, breaking down the entire slate, answering any questions you guys may end up having. It's always a fun time to hang out with you guys for the race start, so I'd highly recommend joining in. Had a lot of people last weekend. I'd love to see you once again. And you can also find me over on Osmo, better known as Stochastic these days, doing the live before lock shows with Jason Floyd. And I'm also writing the tournament articles over on the website if you ever want to check those out. And if you do end up enjoying today's free content, the only thing I ask in return is just a very small favor. If you can leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and hit that bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new content or go live on Sundays. And feel free to leave a comment down below, agreeing or disagreeing with anything I had to say throughout the duration of today's video. Or if you just want to tell me hi or I suck, you can certainly do that as well. And if we can once again get over 300 plus likes on this video, I would truly appreciate it. Every little bit does go a long way in the YouTube algorithm, and the more people that see these videos, the more it helps us all out, not just me. And we've gotten close to 400 likes the past 2 weeks, which is absolutely awesome. So I truly do appreciate all the support you guys have been showing me. And don't forget to check out the sponsor of the show, Prize Picks. They do make these videos possible, and you can use promo code CPEN to get a free instant deposit match bonus up to $100. There's no strings attached. There's free money. Use it to your advantage. You can use it across all sports, and I highly recommend playing over there. I wouldn't recommend it to you guys if I didn't play over there myself. And you can either head over to prizepicks.com, use the link down below, and make sure you use promo code CPEN to get the instant deposit match bonus up to $100. But with that being said, I think that's it for the plug. So without further ado, let's get into the preview of this week's race. And as previously mentioned, this is the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard, the Indy road course, no longer at the Oval. There's your outline of the track. We have 13 turns, and I know it's more of like a roval in nature, but I still think it's more comparable to the technical road courses like Coda, Road America, Sonoma, in Watkins Glen. It's a little bit over 2.5 miles in length, 2.605 to be exact. And like most road courses, we do not have that many laps this weekend, only 82 on the schedule this week, which means just under 60 diameter points. So when you're building lineups, yes, it'd be nice to have the main lap leader in your lineup, but they still have to finish well. So you're mainly just rostering drivers you think are going to finish well, or offer a combination of high finishing position upside with some place differential as well. Because looking at qualifying this weekend, it looks like there's going to be a lot of trap plays based off of what we've seen in practice and what we've seen at road courses this season. So that's going to have to be something we're a little bit careful with. But like I said, it's basically just a finishing position type of race for me when constructing lineups. I'm not going to have any dominator groups, and I'm not going to be chasing dominator points. Also, like, yes, it's nice if I get some dominator points, but they're still going to have to finish the race well, if that makes sense. And as always, I do want to shout out the winners from last week's YouTube contest, and you guys killed it. We filled 2 contests last week, which is absolutely awesome. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I host a YouTube contest each and every single weekend over on DK. You can get the invite, join the league, and you'll get an invite each and every single week automatically once the contest open. So if you want to join in, you can either hit the link in the pinned comment on this video, reach out to me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16, or comment your username or someone. I'll get you an invite either way. I'll accommodate your needs however you want to do it, but we'll figure it out. But I do want to shout out the winners from last weekend, and this is from Contest 1, and taking home the gold and over 120 bucks. We had SMC 93. Taking home the silver, we had Reb69, a longtime member of the Discord. Shout out to Ron there. UFC Fan 1717 in third, rounding out the podium. And finishing 4th and 5th, still taking home some change, just not quite on the podium. We had 5-star lids in 4th, and KDD15, a longtime member in the Discord as well. And in the second contest, again, it filled both, so the same exact prizes here. Taking the gold first place, Cotton 1023. Second, Docman 12600, which I think is back-to-back weeks he was in the top 5. Third, Rob Cincy, and 4th, Jet Racing 22H, and then 5th, JMR 32 has been here for a long time. So shout out to the winners. Maybe we can fill both this weekend. I do appreciate you guys joining, because the more people that join, the more prizes, and obviously the more shout outs I can do, which is fun. So again, if you want to get in, find a way to get into the contest, I'd be more than happy to have you. And if you're wondering my overall thoughts on the pricing this weekend, I think DraftKings did a fine job for how a road course should be priced. We only have 4 drivers in the 10K range, and it's not like they're really that close to $11,000. I mean, we only have 82 laps, so the dominator points aren't really there to make it necessary where we have to have multiple drivers above $11,000. And I think they priced up some of the drivers they should have priced up, and they priced down some of the drivers that have struggled at the road courses this year. So overall, I think it's fine. Is there some mismatches somewhere? Yes, and we'll talk about that. But overall, I think it is fine for a road course. And if you want access to the spreadsheet that I preview for you guys over on YouTube each and every single week, link is down below in the description for that over on the Patreon. Access to all the extra content, articles, projections, optimizer, ownership projections, which are the best out there currently, my own personal exposures, simulation scores for DraftKings and FanDuel, my own personal exposures, if I didn't already mention that, and a bunch of other stuff. So I'd highly recommend checking it out. We have the green flag speed cheat sheet, the pit times over there. So lots of extra content that I use each and every single week to build lineups, and I think you will find it quite helpful. And since it's the last day of the month, if you do want to sign up, I can refund this month's fee for you, so you can get this one for free as long as you signed up in August. But anyway, let's get right into the driver by driver breakdown here. We'll start up top with the best road course racer out there, Chase Elliott, $10,600 on DraftKings, most expensive driver over on FanDuel as well. And it makes sense. I mean, he's starting 8th. He is opened with the best odds over in Vegas. That is currently not the case. Now in 3rd behind Tyler Reddick and Austin Cindric, who happened to qualify on the front row. And Chase wasn't that impressive in practice. I thought we'd have a better showing here. I'm not going to be overly concerned about it because he qualified a lot better than that. But P22 in the 1 lap in practice and P25 in the 5 lap. Now, I want to mention that the 5 lap data in practice is a bit skewed here because you're going to see Daniel Suarez was dead last. You're going to see Chase Briscoe was 2nd to last. So I'm not going to put too much into the 5 lap here, especially some of these bigger name drivers that were really fast in the 1 lap that happened to do just absolutely poorly in the 5 lap. So don't get too caught up into that. But Chase wasn't that impressive in practice, but at the same time, he's been pretty good at the road courses this year. Either like 1st or 2nd in almost every single category. The 2nd most DraftKings points, the 2nd best average finish, the 2nd best running position, the 2nd best drive rating, tied for the most top 5s. Doesn't have a win, but also has the most laps led, time with Daniel Suarez for 1st there, and the most fast laps, finished 2nd at Road America, 8th at Sonoma, and 4th at COTA. Starting in the top 10, that does give him some pretty good track position. I think he's a fine tournament play, but as you're going to see here, I mean, you have Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson, who have similar upside to Chase Elliott. They're starting in the 20s, so you get that place differential upside mixed in there. So while Elliott's a fine tournament play, I am not personally going to go there in cash games. Rather save a few bucks and get the extra PD upside for guys like I said, I think there's a lot of place differential traps this weekend, but I don't think drivers like Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson really fall under that category. And speaking of those guys, we'll start with Chastain here. $10,400 over on DraftKings, starting in P21. He was 4th in the 1 lap in practice, and yes, 17th in the 5 lap. But like I said, not really getting too caught up in the 5 lap because these numbers are a bit skewed here. Like if you did well in the 5 lap, it's fine. But I mean, I'm not going to overreact to some of these guys that did so poorly. But like Chase Elliott, I mean, Ross Chastain is either 1st or 2nd, just about every single category here. Really, he's 1st in everything, just besides the lap led and fast laps category. But he's been awesome at the road courses. One of 3 drivers to finish in the top 10 at each and every single one so far this season. 4th at Road America, 7th at Sonoma, and 1st at COTA. He's 1st in green flag speed at the road courses. Starting mid-pack here, he's going to be a very popular play. If you're playing cash games, he would be the first guy to plug in. And I'm not sure he's going to be the highest owned driver on the slate. Like I said, I do this right after practice and qualifying ends, so I have not yet had time to completely digest the slate. Going through this for the first time together with you all to get my first thoughts, first reactions here. But I feel like Ross Chastain's at least going to be top 3 in ownership, and I do think he's going to be the highest owned expensive driver on the slate this weekend. So I am all aboard the Ross Chastain train once again. And yes, I know he killed our lineups last weekend with the wreck at the end. Well, not really at the end, but close to the end. He was in 1st place, and it was a great play until he wasn't. It was unfortunate, but hopefully we got that out of the way now, and we can just go back to clean racing for Ross Chastain. Kyle Larson, $10,200. He is starting in 22nd, 1 spot behind Ross Chastain, and I mean, arguably 2 of the better plays in the entire slate. He was not as bad as Chase Elliott in practice, just happened to have a very bad qualifying session, but 11th in the 1 lap, 4th in the 5 lap, and obviously pretty darn good at road courses. Hasn't been amazing at them this year, but finished third at Road America, 15th at Sonoma, and then 29th at Coda. But if you remember, I forget if it was Coda or Sonoma, but he had the best car, and then they happened to stay out, and then it kind of screwed the race up. But I mean, starting in 22nd, it's hard not to like Kyle Larson. I'm not sure if we can fit him and Ross Chastain in together, but if you can, I'd say it's a pretty strong way to start your lineups this weekend, especially in cash games. Tyler Reddick, $10,000 when the pricing first came out on Wednesday. I was like, well, I think Reddick's a bit overpriced. Yes, I know he won the last road course race, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to repeat that. But I mean, he got a P1 in the qualifying, got the pole here, now has the best odds in Vegas to win the race. So I guess I'm not really one to talk here. He also has 2 top 5s at road courses this year. So I definitely think he's going to be a contender. Won at Road America, had an issue at Sonoma where he finished 35th and then 5th at Coda. He got the speed at road courses this year. Now, it's going to be kind of hard to click on his name over guys like Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson because starting in the pole, you don't have really any room for error, especially at a track where the dominator points aren't that abundant. But I think having that nice track position, as long as he can stay clean on pit road and has good pit strategy throughout the race, I think he's a fine play in tournaments. Like, I mean, everyone's going to flock to Chastain, everyone's going to flock to Larson, and people are going to play Chase Elliott because it's Chase Elliott at a road course. So Tyler Reddick should go under owned, and I don't think he's a bad play. Like, I feel like I'd rather play Tyler Reddick than Kyle Busch and maybe even Martin Truex Jr. if that tells you anything. So I definitely want exposure to him, but it's not going to be as high as guys like Larson or Chastain. Dropping down to the 9K range, we have Kyle Busch. We're going to start with our first Toyota JGR car here, and that's important because they have been awful with the road courses so far this year, and they didn't really show me too much to like outside of Busch not being terrible in qualifying and practice, and then Christopher Bell was the one kind of bright spot for Toyota this weekend so far. But looking at practice, he was P10 in the one lap, qualified right where he practiced at the road courses this year. It's not been pretty for Kyle Busch. Doesn't even have a top 20. Doesn't even have a top 27. 20th at the Road America, 30th at Sonoma, and 28th at Coda. I mean, he's a good road course racer, but so far this year in the next gen car, the Toyotas and JGR have just been absolutely awful, and I'm not really sure what's going to change this weekend. Bell looks good, I'll give him that, but outside of that, I don't really want to roster any of these Toyotas. Martin Truex Jr., $9,600 starting at 25th. This is one of those guys where I feel like it could be a bit of a trap play as far as place differential is concerned. Like, I'd much rather get the Chase Elliott, but I meant Ross Chastain and Kyle Larson than I would Martin Truex Jr. Yes, I know he's a little bit cheaper than them, but the upside just hasn't been quite as high for Truex. He definitely hasn't been nearly as fast. He does have a top 10 and 2 top 15s, but he really has not been that strong at the road courses. So, yeah, you're going to get to him a little bit because of where he's starting, but he's definitely not my favorite play out there. Like, I'm going to have more exposure to Daniel Suarez than I am Martin Truex Jr., if that tells you anything. He's starting 14 spots higher up. Martin Truex, over the course of his career, yes, great road course racer, but I care way more about what they've done in the next-gen car this year than I do any sort of history in the past several seasons ago. Speaking of Daniel Suarez, $9,400. He's starting in 11th. He has been the second fastest car at road courses this year, and like I said, do not get caught up in that P29 in the 5 lap. Those numbers are a bit skewed, but he was able to put up a P2 in the 1 lap, and it just goes to show I think Trackhouse is going to be fast once again. I'm pretty sure they're cheating. They're getting away with it though, so I'm just going to continue to roster cheaters because, as I always say, I want cheaters in my lineup. And if you were playing DraftKings last weekend, the 2 cheaters finished 1-2. And yes, it kind of sucked over on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, that didn't hurt you in any way. So I'll take all the cheaters I can get in my lineup. And looking at Suarez at road courses this year, obviously had that win at Sonoma, 2 top 5s, tied for the most laps led per race, and I want to say a decent chunk of fast laps. It's only 6.3, but it's also the 3rd most, only behind Chastain and Chase Elliott. Finishes the 5th, 1st, and then 24th at Coda. But at Road America, I mean, passing was just about as impossible, and he was one of the few cars that could actually move through the field a little bit, especially early on. So you gotta like Suarez a lot. I think you can play him in cash games. I'm not sure he's my first choice to go in cash, but in tournaments, I definitely want to be overweight. I'm hoping the alleviated price point of Daniel Suarez is going to keep some people off of him, but I still think he's a fantastic play. Ryan Blaney, $9,200. He is starting in 6th. I think he's a pretty good play in tournaments here. Not sure a lot of people will go that route because of the PD options that we do have. But the Penske cars look really good this weekend, and Ryan Blaney's actually been pretty fast at the road courses. He's top 5 in average game flag speed at them so far this year, and he is barely just missing the cut as a driver, as one of the 3 drivers that have finished in the top 10 in every single road course race this year, finishing 11th at Road America, but 6th at Sonoma, 6th at Coda. He's had the speed at them this year, and he needs a win. Yes, he's sitting quite nicely in the points, but if we have a couple new winners, he is in danger of missing the playoffs, so he's going to have to be on a winning strategy here. But it looks like he's got the speed this weekend. He was P3 in the 1 lap in practice. Sounded like he liked his car in the interview that he had before qualifying. He was also top 10 in the 5 lap as well. So if you're playing tournaments, I do want to get some exposure to Ryan Blaney this weekend. Then I like his teammate Austin Cindric a lot as well. Tied for the best odds to win this race in Vegas with Tyler Reddick. $9,100 on DraftKings starting in the front row. P1 in practice, so he's definitely got the speed, and he is one of 3 drivers to finish in the top 10 each and every single road course race so far this year. 7th at Road America, 5th at Sonoma, and 8th at Coda. I can't remember if he's 3rd or 4th in the average green flag speed at road courses this year, but he's definitely in the top 5. He's had the speed at them. He's a great road course racer ever since the Xfinity days, so I think he's an excellent play in tournaments. A fine pivot off of Tyler Reddick up top, but again, there's so many PD plays in the slate. I don't think these drivers starting in the top 5 or in the top 10 are going to carry a ton of ownership. And as we've seen at the road course this year, it's pretty tough to pass, so I don't mind targeting these guys, especially in tournaments. And dropping down to the 8K range, we have another JGR car here. Denny Hamlin, $8,900 on DraftKings. He is starting in 15th. Not the best odds to win this race in Vegas. P21 in the 1 lap in practice, P15 in the 5 was I'd rather play Truex over Denny Hamlin. I know I said I didn't love Truex, but at least he showed me a little bit more speed as far as the 5 lap was concerned. But again, I don't want to get too caught up in the 5 lap numbers this weekend. But Denny Hamlin's not really a guy I have too much interest in. He has 2 top 20s, which is fine, but starting in 15th, he has finished no better than 17th of the road course this year, and practice didn't really indicate that he's going to be super fast. So while he is cheap for Denny Hamlin, it's just a guy that I don't have much interest in. I'm hoping people chase him because of the low price tag, but I don't have much interest there. Chase Briscoe, $8,800 over on DraftKings. He is starting P3. Always tends to qualify well at the road courses, it seems like. Has the, I believe, 4th best odds to win this race over in Vegas. He's behind Reddick, he's behind Cindric, behind Elliott, and he's tied with Suarez, for the 4th best odds there over in Vegas to win this race. Wasn't super impressive in practice. P13 in the 1 lap. Now, obviously, the 5 lap number's a bit messed up, but he qualified well. And, as we've seen at the road courses, when you qualify well, you tend to stay up front for a good chunk of the race. And at the road courses this year, he's been a top 15 contender. He hasn't really knocked your socks off or anything, but P14, P13. If you can have a clean race, I don't think Briscoe's a terrible play here. Definitely a tournament play only, but I don't see myself getting to a ton of Briscoe, but he's not a full fade for me. He's definitely a top 5 contender. And honestly, he could have won this race last year, and then he had the fiasco with Denny Hamlin at the end where he drove through the grass and didn't know he had a penalty, and it was a bit of a mess. But any single time we're at a road course, Briscoe's gonna at least have some tournament interest. William Byron, $8,700. He is starting in 23rd. I could see him being a popular cash play because he's starting mid-pack here, but he wasn't impressive in practice. At P25 in the 1 lap, P20 in the 5 lap. Also, his hauler caught on fire this weekend, so I was trying to find a narrative with that for his car. I'm not sure if that means he's going to be blazing fast because his car was on fire, or if it means it's going to spontaneously combust during the halfway point of the race. I'm not sure. The car's fine, obviously, but he didn't really show me a ton of speed, and it was kind of weird. He's pretty solid at road courses. I was kind of concerned of what I saw, though, in practice, but he's been in the top 20 each and every single road course this year, in the top 15 2 out of 3 times. He also has a top 10 finish. 16th at Road America, 9th at Sonoma, and 12th at Coda. While he didn't show me a ton in practice, it's still a Hendrick car. He's starting outside the top 20. I don't think he's going to be as fast as Ross Chastain or Kyle Larson starting in the 20s, but he doesn't have to be because he's about $1,000 some cheaper than those guys. So he's definitely playable in my opinion. Christopher Bell, the last JGR car here, $8,600. He is starting in 4th, and as I always say for the road courses so far, I don't really want to play the Toyotas, but Christopher Bell showed me a lot of speed. He's got some decent odds in Vegas. He was 5th in the 1 lap in practice, 1st in the 5 lap, and 1st in the 10 lap. And he's a good road course racer. It's just, the JGR cars haven't been exactly amazing at them this year. They finished top 5 at Coda, but I'm willing to play some Christopher Bell. He's got some premium track position to work with here, and he can definitely be a top 5 contender, and the price point's pretty cheap. I'd rather play Bell over Denny Hamlin, at least in my opinion. I'm hoping he has lower ownership, but I don't think Bell's a bad tournament play on the slate here. Kevin Harvick, $8,400. He's starting in 18th. He's been pretty solid at the road courses this year. 10th at Road America, 4th at Sonoma, 11th at Coda. Starting in 18th, I think he might get a little overlooked because William Byron's right there and AJ Allmendinger's right there. So if he's going to be a little bit lower owned, I think he's a fine guy to get to in tournaments. Looking at practice, he wasn't awful. P14 in the 1 lap and P8 in the 5 lap. The 10 lap burn wasn't good, but again, these 5 and 10 lap numbers are not really something I'm going to get into too much, but I assume he's going to be a top 15 guy. He's only $8,400. He's certainly my player pool AJ Allmendinger is going to be one of my favorite plays on this slate, I think, starting mid-pack, $8,200. If you're playing cash games, I feel like you're going to get the Allmendinger here. He was top 10 in the 1 lap in practice, P5 in the 5 lap. And while the finishes haven't really been there for Dinger at the road courses, you got to keep in mind, he's had so many issues this season. He still finished top 10 in Road America, but he had, I believe it was a pit penalty he had to overcome during that race. And at Sonoma, he was battling a steering issue, which for a road course is very hard to overcome. But he was running close to the top 10 at the end of the race and ended up spinning with a couple laps to go, I believe. Finished just inside the top 20, but he was definitely better than 19th place car there, battling the steering issue. And then 33rd at Coda, but he could have won that race, and he just wrecked in the last turn there with Chastain and Alex Bowman. So a couple things you have to keep in mind there when you're looking at Dinger's finishes. But over on DK, he's incredibly cheap. Vandal, tougher to get to at $11,000, but it looks like he's got some speed this weekend. I believe he's top 12, top 10 in green flag speed at the road courses this year, so I don't see a reason not to like Allmendinger. Joey Logano, $8,000. He is starting in 5th. Wasn't amazing in practice. P24 in the 1 lap, P14 in the 5 lap. His crew chief did say they're trying something new this weekend, and he qualified well. He's only $8,000. So he's just been really bad at the road courses this year. 27th at Road America, 17th at Sonoma, and 31st at Coda. Like over the course of his career, he's always been a solid road course racer. Just hasn't really shown it this season, but it looks like the Penske cars have speed. Like, he was the one guy that didn't really show it in practice of the bunch here, but at only $8,000, he's definitely a lower on pivot from a guy like Dinger, Kevin Harvick even. So I don't mind getting to a little bit of Logano. I just starting a little high up. But again, we've seen track position has been very important at road courses this year. Only a tournament play for me, though. Dropping down to the 7K range, we have Alex Bowman, another guy who I could see being pretty popular in cash games, starting nearly in 30th place. The odds in Vegas are not pretty, and practice wasn't pretty either. P26 in the 1 lap, P16 in the 5 lap, but he's also been pretty good at road courses this year, so it's one of those things where, yes, he's been good at road courses, but then he just didn't really show it this weekend, which I'm definitely concerned because I definitely care more about what I've seen over the weekend than what I've seen so far this year, because we've seen a lot of weeks where, some teams just completely hit or completely miss on the setup. And I mean, it doesn't look pretty for Bowman right now, but I mean, so far at the road courses this year, 2nd at Coda, 16th at Sonoma, 12th at Road America. It's not like we need a top 5 showing out of Bowman. We don't even need a top 10 showing. If he can battle for a top 15 below 8K in a Hendrick car, starting nearly in 30th place, that's good enough to get the job done. So if we don't play him in cash games, go for it. But if you are playing tournaments, there's definitely spots to get different on, especially if he's kind of raced like he practiced during the race. Chris Buescher, $7,500 on DraftKings. He's starting in 16th. He's been really good at the road courses this year. 6th at Road America, 2nd at Sonoma, 21st at Coda. And he's always been a top 20 guy at road courses. The past 10 races at them, he's been in the top 29 out of 10 times. And overall, some of the best numbers at road courses so far this year. P20 in the 1 lap in practice, was P6 in the 5 lap. His teammate Brett Keselowski was super fast. So I think RFK definitely has some speed this weekend. Just didn't really qualify that well. I mean, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't as bad as some other teams, but 12th for Keselowski and 16th for Buescher. But I do think they're both in play for tournaments. Michael McDowell, $7,300. He's starting in 7th. Practice wasn't super impressive, but he qualified well and kind of got busted last week. But, I mean, he's been so good at the road courses, we can't really ignore him. P8 at Road America, P3 at Sonoma, and P13 at Coda. I'm having a hard time not liking Michael McDowell. Like, yes, he's starting in the top 10, but he's done that a couple times at road courses. He's able to hold his position, if not gain upon that. So while practice wasn't amazing for him, I'm still going to be a believer in Michael McDowell and play him this weekend. Eric Jones, $7,100, and this is the first guy that pops in my mind where I think he could be a potential trap play, because yes, he is starting just about dead last, but he practiced dead last, and he's been awful at the road courses recently. He was P35 in the 1 lap in practice, so it's not like he practiced well then just happened to have a bad qualifying lap. This is exactly where he practiced. And if you're looking at his numbers at road courses this year, yes, he's averaging close to 35 DraftKings points per race, but that's because he keeps starting in the back. I mean, average finish of 19th, a running position of 23.1, and a putrid driver rating of 53.4. Like, that's worse than Keselowski. That's worse than Austin Dillon. It's worse than Cole Custer by a decent margin. It's worse than Justin Haley. Like, he's just not been good at the road courses. 26th at Road America, 22nd at Sonoma. Was good at Coda, but that's a long time ago. And he was lucky to get a P22 at Sonoma. He was terrible in that race. Just got lucky that some guys happened to pit at the end hoping for a strategy to work out, and that just wasn't the case. Like, he's a good road course racer over the past few seasons, but the past couple of races have been bad for him, and he does not have any speed this week. So look, he's playable in cash because you don't need much to go right for him to score you 25, 30 points. But in tournaments, I'm definitely going to try to get away from some Eric Jones because I can see a scenario where he's just running P30 all day. I mean, there's no guarantee that he's going to finish above guys like Chris Buescher, Eric Almirola, Brad Keselowski, all at similar price points, and even guys like Cole Custer, Justin Haley. So, yeah, I mean, the PD is appealing, but I do think he could go a bit over-owned, and I'll try to be underweight in tournaments personally. Like, I feel like Michael McDowell should end up being a better play than Eric Jones unless this happens to turn into a wreck fest like it did last year at Indy. But, I mean, Michael McDowell's definitely showed a lot more speed at the road courses this year. Ty Gibbs filling in for Kurt Busch once again, $7,000 on both sites starting in 26. His odds to open up were plus 10,000. They went down to plus 4,000. Now after practice and qualifying, they're back up to plus 10,000. And it's just kind of the same old case with Toyotas where they just weren't really fast in practice. P30 in the 1 lap, P24 in the 5 lap, and then P8 in the 10 for Ty Gibbs. And he was struggling in the braking zones. And like, he's a very talented road course racer. I think he's got 3 Xfinity wins at road courses, if I'm remembering correctly. Very good at them, obviously, but I mean, he's only 19 years old, and he's competing against a lot of guys that have a lot more experience in next-gen car road courses. So while the talent's there, it's still a very young driver making their first road course start in a next-gen car. So I have my concerns there. Yes, the PD is appealing, but I'm probably not going to go that route. I'm dropping down to the 6K range. We have Eric Almirola, $6,900 on DraftKings. He is starting in 14th. Wasn't terrible in practice. P15 in the 1 lap, P11 in the 5 lap. At the road courses this year, hasn't been super impressive. Top 20 at 2 of them, and then P28 at Road America, starting in P14. He's one of those guys where I don't really have a strong stance here. Like, I don't hate him. I'd rather play Brad Keselowski personally, but whatever the optimizer gives me on Almirola, I'll take it. But he's definitely not a guy I'm going to single out to play. Keselowski is a guy I might single out to play, though, at $6,100, starting in 12th. He showed a lot of speed in practice, and as you can see, his odds, 4,000 there, is a lot better than all these other drivers that he's priced around. P6 in the 1 lap in practice, P2 in the 5, and P3 in the 10. It looks like he's going to carry some speed this weekend. And outside of Road America, he was P10 in Sonoma and P14 at COTA. Starting in 12th, it makes it a bit tougher to get to. Definitely not a cash play, but if you're playing tournaments, I mean, get into a guy like Keselowski over and Eric Jones is going to make you different. And I see there's a decent chance Keselowski could outscore Eric Jones, especially if he really struggles like he did in practice. Austin Dillon, $6,700. He is starting in 29th, another guy that you should carry some ownership this weekend, starting nearly in 30th place. But he wasn't that bad in practice. P12 in the 1 lap, P10 in the 5 lap. It also has gotten a lot better at road courses the past couple of seasons. He was one of the worst in the series, and now he's typically a top 15 contender. Wasn't good at Road America, poor finish there, but 11th at Sonoma. 10th at COTA, I think he's fine. Like, if you're playing cash games, yeah, I'd prefer Dillon over Keselowski, but in tournaments, I think I would probably try to pull the trigger on Keselowski there because he does have that track position to start with. And as we've seen, passing has been very tough at road courses this year. Bubba Wallace, $6,500. I do not play Bubba at road courses. Sucked in practice, and he's been really bad this year. He does not have a finish better than 35th at the road course. 35th at Road America, 36th at Sonoma, 30th at COTA. I will gladly pass there. Bubba Wallace is off on a road course, whatever. I will take the L, but I just don't see it happening. Cole Custer, $6,300, starting in 24th. He's actually pretty solid as far as his green flag speed is concerned at the road courses this year. Didn't really show it in practice, though. P27 in the 1 lap, and overall this season, the running position is pretty good for him at road courses at 13.9 and the 80.3 driver rating, which is the best we've seen since Michael McDowell. And 15th at Road America, 21st at Sonoma, 23rd at COTA. Starting in 24th, he's a fine PD play down there, but not a guy I'm really going to go on my way to roster. You do have Stenhouse, who was very slow in practice, but so was Custer, and he's starting dead last. So I'd rather get the Stenhouse than I would Custer, personally, if it's cash games. Justin Haley, $6,200. He's starting in 17th. Was top 10 in the 1 lap over in practice. Not a bad road course racer. Has 2 top 15s to his name this year. If you are in tournaments, if you are debating against guys like Custer, Stenhouse, and Justin Haley, Haley's going to have the lowest ownership of the bunch, but he's had the most speed so far over the course of this weekend. He's also had a lot better finishes than Ricky Stenhouse does. So while Stenhouse is starting dead last, yes, that's fine for cash. Just keep in mind, Justin Haley, a little bit more speed and has had that track position to work with him, though, so don't hate him as a pivot. Stenhouse, $6,100, starting in 38th. Could be a bit of a trap play here, but you do not need a lot to go his way to be a solid play. Now, is he going to be optimal? Well, that's yet to be seen. He was P32 in the 1 lap in practice, but if you're playing cash games it's kind of hard not to just plug him in at that price point starting in dead last. Like, do I expect him to do well? No. Do I expect him to compete for a top 25? Yeah, maybe more so a top 30. But he's starting 38th, and Stenhouse is not as bad as some of these guys down low, like Corey LaJoie, Cody Ware, Josh Williams, Bilicki. So I'm going to play him. I mean, he finished 19th at Road America, 25th at Sonoma. I believe he wrecked out over at Coda. But starting dead last, like, yeah, you're going to have some exposure to Ricky Stenhouse, unfortunately. Ty Dillon, $6,000, starting in P30, was pretty similar as far as his practice speeds to Stenhouse. But, I mean, his teammate Eric Jones was absolutely awful, but finished 20th at Road America, 23rd at Sonoma, and 20th at Coda. He's been typically competing for top 20s, top 25. So starting in 30th, maybe he's a decent pivot off of Stenhouse. He's going to be lower owned, but I mean, Stenhouse is going to project better. But Ty Dillon's, I don't think is too far off of a play from Ricky Stenhouse this weekend. Just not going to have quite the ownership. Dropping down to the 5K range, Harrison Burton qualified pretty well. He's $5,800 starting in 13th, 17th in the 1 lap in practice, then P12 in the 5 and P6 in the 10 lap. His road course finishes this year does have one top 20. Outside of that, hasn't been super impressive. I don't really want to play him. I just think he's going to lose spots during this race. So I'm probably going to pass on Burton. Joey Hand finally qualified poorly at a road course. I feel like every single time he happens to qualify well, and he shows some speed, so it makes it tough to play him. But starting in 27th, I mean, you can get to some Joey Hand this weekend. He was P18 in the 1 lap in practice, the 19th in the 5, and 7th in the 10. But I'm expecting him to compete for a top 20 here. He was 21st at Road America and 20th at Sonoma. Was really good at Coda, but then had the issue at the end of the race. The only problem is he's in a Rick Ware car, so are they going to hold up throughout the duration of the race? That's the question. If it does, I do think he can gain some spots, though. So I'll get to some Joey Hand here. I believe you pronounce his name Fiat, $5,500. He's starting in 36. He was super slow. This is his first NASCAR race. I'm probably not going to get there. He was P37 and the 1 lap in practice. Gillen shows some speed, though. He was top 10 in qualifying, starting in 9th, $5,400, 16th in the 1 lap over in practice. It doesn't have a top 15 to his name, though, at a road course this year, but he does have some premium track position to work with. But I think, in all honesty, he's going to lose some spots during this race. So probably going to be a pass on Gillen for me. I might play him a little bit, just hoping he kind of stays within the top 12. And all these PD plays down here bust. But I don't think I'm going to have much exposure at all to him. Corey LaJoie has not finished better than 34th at a road course this year. Qualified outside the top 30. P36 in the 1 lap in practice. I'll probably pass on LaJoie. Cody Ware, no thank you. Definitely not playing Williams, slowest guy on the track this weekend. Bilicki, Heismans, I don't know how to pronounce it, but either way, don't care because you are not entering my lineups this weekend. So the lowest guy I really want to play is Gilland, and even then I don't want to do it. So really Joey Hand would be the guy I'd get to the most out of all these 5K junker cars down low. But with that being said, I think that's going to just about do it. So if you made it all the way through, let me know down in the comments. I do appreciate everyone that does listen all the way through. And if you can leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, if you enjoyed it, and hit the bell and all that fun stuff, you know what to do. It all helps me out quite a bit. And if you want to check out the extra content over on Patreon, you can get this last week for free as long as you say signed up for August. Link is down below in the description for that. Join the YouTube contest if you haven't yet done so. The link will be in the pinned comment in this video. I'll be live tomorrow around 11 or 11:30. Assuming my voice isn't gone, but I don't think it was too bad during this video. Like I said, do have COVID, so it's been a bit rough this weekend, but we should be good to go. But I think that's just about it. I wish you all the best of luck this weekend. If it goes anything like last year's road course at Indy, we're going to need all the luck we can get. But that's not something I'm expecting to happen again.